All right, folks, we are live. Hey, thanks for joining us today on Blue Collar Tradesmen. So, today I wanted to kind of talk about um, going on your own, what that looks like, what kind of things you might be needing to deal with, might need to hire, services, things like that. So, let's just jump right into it. So, you've been working for a contractor, you're working for a company for, a few years. Let's say for most contractors licenses, you need a minimum 4 years, okay, experience. So let's just say, for sake of argument, that you've been working for a contractor steadily and increasing in position for the last 6 years, okay? We'll make it simple. We'll say that you've gotten up to, say, a foreman or even a site supervisor, even just a uh, lead journeyman for your company. Okay, and say you've been working for that company for 6 years now, and you're saying, well, now's the time where I want to explore going on my own and what that could actually look like, right? So first, if you are considering going on your own, you're going to need to look at a few things. And first and foremost is getting your license. So, depending on what trade you're in, if you're in concrete, your trade requirements are going to be very different than, say, an electrician or a plumber. Okay. And so, what you're going to want to do is go to your state's website, okay, and look at what the requirements are to gain a contractor's license. And some of this stuff is actually covered under one of the other videos we did earlier this week for license reciprocity. Because what it is that the only real difference between license reciprocity and a new application really is that you already have a license, and so your trade exam will get waived. Whereas if you're a new applicant, you will need to submit a bunch of paperwork, go through a background, and then take your trade and take your law test. Now, so for instance, if we're going to Florida, Florida has their own requirements, okay? And they may say, okay, well, we need 4 years experience, we need a financial affidavit, we need to have work references, we need to have job references, as well as do a thorough background check. So that means that you're probably also going to need to submit fingerprinting, either through LiveScan or through your local sheriff's department. And some of these packets can be pretty in depth. They can be pretty thick as far as what they're looking for and what they want from you. And the idea is you want to start this process a minimum of 6 months to a year from when you actually want to be on your own or when you're envisioning to be on your own. And the big reason why is because the government's moves slow, bureaucracy's a bitch, and even though you pay your blood money, you still have to go through all the steps. So you get your application together. Say your application fee is $300. So then you give the board your $300, your application. They give you a receipt saying, hey, okay, we received it. Here's your receipt. And you'll hear from us in the next various months, depending on the jurisdiction and how fast they can go through things. You're looking anywhere from at least usually a month to 6 months, even 7, 8 months, depending on how large that jurisdiction is and how many applications they have to deal with at that time. Like for Nevada, for instance, going for refrigeration, it has taken about a year. Part of that was my fault, part of that was just their process. So, what they do is that once you submit your application and your fee, then they mark you as eligible as taking the exams. Then they have the state of Nevada, instead of doing their own exams in house, they use a third party vendor called PSI. And so then you have to get in touch with them. They have to see in their system that you're eligible to take the test and you set it up. And, most times, like what I've been through, when I took California, I was able to stack all of the exams. I could go in, take them all in one day, and be done. Whereas with PSI, you're only allowed to take one test at a time. So you'll have to do a day for your law exam, a day for your trade exam. And if you have multiple classifications, so say you're doing plumbing, HVAC, and solar, right? Well, you need three different licenses. So then you'd have to do a test day for each of those licenses. Okay. So once you get through, and depending on what the rules are, uh, so you get eligible for your test and you go and take your test. Okay. Generally, you're going to schedule your law exam first. Okay. And I always recommend getting the study guide. Okay. Get the study guide, read it over. There's going to be a lot of questions that are in the book, but they're not directly in the book. So it's a lot of indirect questions. So they'll ask a question, it'll be extremely relative to this one area of your book, and you're going to look in there and just find the best answer typically. Then, let's say you fail your exam. Well, most uh, contracting boards have a limitation on your uh, on the amount of times that you can fail and retake the exam on any given exam. So, like Nevada was 3 times. If you cannot pass the test after 3 times, then what happens is that you have to reapply, which means you have to resubmit the $300, resubmit the financial statement, resubmit your work experience, and all that. And then you basically just start the whole process over. So let's say now you've passed your test and now you're waiting for your card to come in. It's the glorious moment you've been waiting for, your certificate and your pocket card for your license. Okay. Now that means you are good to go. You can open shop, big guy. So then what you're going to do is, after you've passed the test, but before you've gotten your cards, depending on how you did it, okay, if you go in and you register the license under your company, so say before you applied, you sat down and you did the basics of doing like an FBSN search, fictitious business name search. Uh, if you go through those steps first and create your entity first, then you can actually apply under your entity for the license. And it just makes things go so much simpler. I mean, you'll be listed as a principal if you're, yourself, but you would still basically on your license, it'll have your company name and then your name as the qualifier. So if you're the kind of person like me, you already put your company together, you've already now submitted, you've applied, you've been eligible for your test, you took your test, you passed your test, now you're ready to go. Okay. So let's say you have XYZ Mechanical Incorporated. Okay. Now, what you can do is you want to start building relationships with other business owners in your area. Okay, which I think is probably one of the most important aspects you can do, is start getting into your community, talking to people, any of the local stores that you visit. Try and talk to the owner, get to know them, let them know what you do. That way, anytime they need something, they think of you. Okay. And you start getting cards made, you start handing them out, doing the marketing aspect. I do not recommend that you go and build a website. Do not do that. That is the dumbest shit you can do, I think personally, that early in the game, because the fact is that you don't have a portfolio yet, you don't have anything going on, and your website is going to look very cookie cutter. And not only that, but let's take into account cost. It can get extremely expensive to build a website. So I would say a website is way down the road as far as priorities. Okay. So kick that can down the road. what I would be doing is getting my business cards made, start getting out talking to folks, and then from there I would start reaching out to my wholesalers. Now, depending on like the company you worked for previously, okay, you may, depending on that company might have only worked on say one or two brands, okay, and they may have an exclusive agreement with one brand, okay. And if that's the case and that's what you're comfortable with, then you can look at pursuing an exclusive agreement to start out. I don't usually recommend that though, because what you're going to find is that starting out, you're going to want to take almost anything and everything out there that you can get because you're trying to build your rapport in your business. So, what I would say is go around to your local wholesaler, start introducing yourself to the counter folks, buy some small items, maybe buy a tool, maybe buy some stock for the truck from each location. Start getting to know the guys, and then, maybe make that a weekly thing, where you go in, you say hi, kind of bullshit with the counter guys, and kind of get to know them, because what's going to happen there, and that I think a lot of guys undervalue, is that we, as a single owner operator, and even a company with, you know, not many employees, right? Let's say five or less. Well, time is everything and efficiency is everything. So being able to get everything done in a timely fashion is how we make money, okay? And so having a good relationship with your counter staff at your wholesalers and your salesmen, okay? What that does is that buys you likability with them, because those guys deal with assholes who work for other companies day in, day out, and they get really fucking tired of it, quite frankly. So if you're a guy that's going to go in, bullshit with them, give them some shit, maybe you go in, take them some energy drinks, cheap lotto tickets, just, massage them and, get them to be what what people would consider as friends for the most part. Maybe you're not inviting them over to your barbecue, but you can go in, and as soon as they see you walk through the door, they're like, "Hi, Mr. Patterson, how are you? What can we help you with?" And there's five other guys waiting in line. You know, it's things like that that really go a long way. And, even taking those days where, they're really busy, they got five other guys ahead of you, maybe they do recognize you, you know, and want to give you the treatment, but you say, you know what? Go ahead and take care of these guys. Because then what it does is that it shows the other guys, okay, this guy's cool. He's not going to be a dick, while at the same time you're respecting the counter guys by, allowing them to actually make money and get things done, because maybe you're just in there for a $20 roll of tape and you're not looking to get anywhere fast. Well, that's a great opportunity to kind of let the flow go, let the guys go ahead, kind of, meander around, look around, see what they have in stock, and then go from there. Okay, these are good business building tactics, especially as an HVAC company, and it'll work great for plumbers and great for electricians. Really good for the companies that have to go to a wholesale house on a regular basis who deal with servicing and repairing different machines or equipment, right? Uh, so now you're starting to get established. Okay. So now let's say you started taking some calls, you're starting to build a rapport with a wholesaler. Well, now you need to start looking at invoicing and uh, accounting and bookkeeping. Okay. So for invoicing, what I've always done starting off is you want to start pretty basic. You don't need anything terribly fancy, but you need something that looks professional enough. Okay. So you can go online. Uh, I can show you right now. We'll look for invoice templates. Okay. Invoice templates. I have a friend in here. Who is it? It's my doggy. So, if you go to HVAC invoice templates, like right here, eForms, free HVAC invoice template, and right there, just a stupid basic version. It allows you to write your description, how many hours, the price in total, and your customer information, billing, and all that. Okay, so that's if you wanted to go that simple. Now let's look at Template Republic. Okay, it's the same one there, or you can even go with like this type. Okay, so let's see here. Can we okay, we can't pull them up for some reason. Let's do this. So you can do something like this. Okay, and this is actually a type. Well, fuck, you can't really see that, can you? But this is a style that it has been around for a very long time, and it's more or less a go-to type of invoice for HVAC. What you're looking at here is like this section is your customer information, right? And then within that, you have like appointment times. It'll give you a slot for that, who you're sending, city, state name, all that. And then you have environmental checklists. So, that'll tell you if, like for the refrigerant or different things that we reclaim, return, recycle, things like that. And then you have a list of basic service items here that you can check through. And, here you would write what your materials were that you needed and the cost, your labor, and then description of work. And say by the end you have recommendations, or say this was like a maintenance or a service call. You could write recommendations in there and then have a total bill out, have your customer sign it, has, your warranty statement, all that bullshit. Okay. But we also live in 2023 now. So, what I would say is you're probably going to want to go to a more digital format, which would be more like this, right? So, there are invoicing services that you can use, okay? So, if depending on where your budget is, it will really kind of determine where you stand in that whole picture of what you're going to go with. Now, if you're looking, say you've only got a couple $100, right? So say you've got your tools, you're ready to go, you passed your license, but you ain't got much money. Say you're at about $1,000 starting. Okay, after you have everything, you're ready to go, you're ready to start business. So, but you have $1,000 in your pocket to make things happen. I would say allocate about $100 ish, 150, and get some basic invoices made. Okay. And then from there, what you're going to do is that you're only going to hold invoices on record for no more than 5 years. And the reason why is because typically we cycle through all our information. The only time that you keep a file for more than 5 years is if you are doing new construction, in which case chances are you're going to be holding that for 10 years. However, you make a file, get a regular manila folder, put this invoice in it, any related receipts with it, put it in your file cabinet or put it in a milk crate, just keep it separate and keep it available. Okay. Because what'll happen is that right now you don't have a digital record of where you've been, what you did, and what customers you serve. So this will allow you to be able to come back to your office and relatively with ease find your job if something was to come up. Now, if you got a little bit more of a budget and you want to go with something more automated, what I would do is let's do this. You can go with like Service Titan here. Okay, we'll bring this up. Okay, so Service Titan is it's an invoicing platform. I haven't used it, but I know a lot of companies do. And so what they do is that this is a way that keeps everything, hold on, it keeps everything centralized, okay, for your company. What this will allow you to do is that this will allow you to invoice. This will allow you to do customer management, okay? So you will have a Rolodex that has all your customers' information, their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, their emails, okay? And if they have multiple addresses, you'll be able to log those things within your profile here. And then from there, okay, is uh, having the customer retention is great. Then you're able to kind of automate things. Now, what's cool with like Service Titan, I use House Call Pro personally, and so let's pull that up. House Call Pro. So I use this personally, and so and they serve multiple industries. Here, this is just some of their basics. So they do HVAC, plumbing, electrical, garage door guys, landscaping, appliance, carpet cleaning, and they do a lot more. So the idea behind these kind of services and like, okay, so let's look at pricing for House Call Pro. So if you're basic, right, and you're just one guy, shit, I need to have my stuff redone, apparently. Hmm. Oh, okay, maybe not. Okay, so if you're a single owner operator, okay, and you're just looking to have something to kind of streamline and automate your business as far as keeping track of customers, taking payments, being able to invoice, email those invoice, build estimates, send those estimates, and all that, and it really gets you a good kind of basis starting. For $65 a month, you can get that with House Call Pro, and you get all these different features with it. Okay, so with these features is that just with the basic, you'll be able to process credit cards. You'll have a calendar that you can schedule, and it's actually a really cool calendar if you get into dealing with it. Uh, you get dispatching. Now, dispatching when you're one person, it's kind of a moot feature. However, once you start building employees and building your company, that's going to come in handy. Paperless invoicing is great because now you're not making your customers sign and giving them a paper invoice anymore. Now, when the job is complete, you can have them sign if you'd like, and then as long as you have their email or a phone number, you can text them or email the invoice. Okay, putting it estimates together is pretty easy. Basically, you'll have your price book, things like that, and once you have all your pricing set up, then making estimates are pretty easy. They can be pretty quick to make. And then you get to customize text notifications. So if you want to send notifications out to your customers, say, hey, it's time for maintenances, or hey, a technician is on the way, you can make your own uh, text that will get sent out and that your customers will see. Then you get chats inside, so you and your employees, if you ever get employees, will be able to talk to each other through the platform, not just through the phone. So they have a lot of cool things. They'll do online booking. They'll give you a local number, but that's for like when you're sending out automated text messages and stuff. um I don't know if you can use that phone number as like an additional line, but yeah, so I mean, other than the basics, which you have the mobile app, it's good for Android, Apple, and depending on if you set up your payouts right through the credit card setup, then you can do instant payouts. So then when they pay, you get the money that day. And really, it's not a bad uh, setup. I appreciate what they can provide. Okay. So, what I would say is get your invoicing locked. Figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to handle customer management. Okay. Then, now we've gotten to that point. So, we've gotten through customer management, we've gotten through invoicing here. You've got your license, you're ready to go, you've got your cards ordered. Now you want to figure out your vehicle. Okay, now I understand you may not have a lot of money, and so you may not be able to go out, buy yourself a work vehicle that you can get lettered. You may end up with your personal vehicle at first. What I would recommend is that if you do not have a small truck, get yourself a small truck, okay? Then you don't even have to get it lettered. Start with magnets, okay? You can get magnets made from Vistaprint, other places, even probably locally. And, even though it'll cost you probably $200-300, they're a great little marketing tool, but it's easy for people just to read it. And, just getting started with things, you don't really need to invest all that much money into it, at least not right now. So I would take, save that money and build up. Maybe in the next year, once you've been able to save up some profits, or maybe you need a tax write off, then you can take that money and go get yourself uh, an actual dedicated work vehicle that you can actually have decals put on, images or lettering, whatever you have. So I would go with that. Then now you're going down the road, you're working, you got your truck, you got your cards, you got your invoicing down, your customer management's locked. What is the next step? Well, now you have things like bookkeeping, okay? Now, when it comes to bookkeeping, what you're going to want to do is have a bookkeeping software. Now, when you're using like Housecall Pro, Service Titan, or any of the other softwares that you can use for invoicing, they do not do bookkeeping, okay? You will need a separate bookkeeping software. Most folks use like QuickBooks, okay? Now, the perk of having Housecall Pro is that with Housecall Pro, you can actually link it with QuickBooks. So here, I didn't take it down yet. We can see right here, QuickBooks integration. So what that does is that allows you to sync your Housecall Pro account to your QuickBooks. So anytime you make an invoice, that invoice gets logged as paid in Housecall. Now you're able to go in to Housecall right after you log the payment, like on your desktop, and you send it over to QuickBooks. And so then everything's synced out. Helps. And eventually you'll need a bookkeeper. I would hire a bookkeeper your first year, because nothing is worse than getting down to tax time and your books are shit because you don't know books, your trade. Get a bookkeeper. A good bookkeeper is invaluable. And if you end up using QuickBooks, QuickBooks has approved accountants and bookkeepers that they certify as being specialists of their software. So I would recommend, if you're going to sign up with QuickBooks, find someone who is a QuickBooks expert, okay? And the reason why is that it takes all the hassle away from you trying to translate information over, or trying to carry information over from one software to another, or trying to get your bookkeeper to translate things that they don't understand. Whereas if you're already with QuickBooks and you hire a QuickBooks professional bookkeeper, everything's in line, okay? Then when it comes to tax time, you ask your tax professional, hey, what do you need? He's going to give you a list of items needed, and you give it to him, okay? So now you have a bookkeeper. Your bookkeeper is actually reconciling your bank accounts, going through everything, making sure everything's legit, right? Now, you've been doing this for about a year. So now we're coming up. It's the first of the year, and you need to start looking at taxes, gentlemen. Okay. Now, with taxes, hopefully you are able to either one of two things: allocate enough money throughout the year for your taxes. Well, one of three things, and pay quarterly. Okay. Maybe you're putting 10, 15,000 towards the IRS quarterly. Okay. Or you are saving up enough money throughout the year to make your annual tax payment. Now, depending on how you do it, now you'll be a sole prop, chances are, starting off, unless you're smart and you just start off with an incorporated company. But if you start off as a sole prop, your taxes really aren't bad, but you get taxed very differently. So all the money you make, and being a contractor, you're going to make a fuck ton of money, okay, if you're any good. So then what ends up happening is that because you're a sole prop, right, and you're going to file taxes that way, well, now they're going to take a much larger chunk of your profits, okay? So then that's where having write-offs are very important. So then you get to method number three. Okay. And this is, I think, really where you've been in business for a while. You now have a good kind of track record going. So then what you want to do is start building up enough money in write-offs to kind of counter your profits. So that's why when you get to a certain size of business, they'll start telling you, your accountant will start mentioning, hey, you need to start buying vehicles. And vehicles are some of the best write-offs you can have. They're large write-offs, and they're depreciable either instantly. If they're over a certain weight, you can depreciate them within 3 years or over 5 years. So, all right, hold on, guys. Go. Hold on. All right, cool. Sorry about that, guys. So, having tax deductions is going to be huge for you, okay? So, to have more tax deductions, to be able to write off more, what happens is that then that counts against your profits. Okay. So then what happens is that at the end of the year, you actually show that you made less than you really did. Now, it's a benefit and it's a curse at the same time, okay, to be able to do that. Because then what happens is that if you are in, say you own your house, you're in a spot, you're not looking to really go outside of your work and your job, making your money, filing the taxes, you're just kind of cruising, then you're okay. Okay. Then I would say, go ahead and stick with that method and continue. However, you may get to a point, say you're a younger guy and you're looking to either buy a first home, or maybe you want to put more investments in, being able to, let's say you want to get some rental properties, right? Well, what you're going to want to do is then you need to be showing enough profit, or you need to be, say you're incorporated, you need to be paying yourself enough money to show that on your personal payroll that you are financially solvent. Okay. So that's going to be really important to really structure yourself and figure out where you're going to go and where you're wanting to go, because you can set your taxes up to where you really don't pay much. You have a heavy write off, and your profits really get kind of reduced. Or you can go with paying a little bit more tax and showing more profit, okay, which is not a bad thing. It shows growth, especially if you're ever going to try and get an expansion loan, okay? So then what happens is that then if you structure yourself properly and then you're paying yourself well, then what happens is that you are able as personnel to go and purchase, say, rental property, investment property, things that will make you more money. Well, you need to show that you are making X amount of money in order to be able to do things like that. So that's why structuring your taxes are important. Okay. Uh, but having your company incorporated, I think, gives you a bit more flexibility. As long as you're paying yourself enough, you'll have the flexibility to be able to buy yourself investment properties. And then once you get investment properties, say you go down that route, right? Then what happens is that those investments will be able to be depreciable against your profits from your corporation, you see. So then what happens is that basically the taxes kind of wash themselves out for the most part. You can get to a net zero tax bill. It takes a lot of working and it takes a lot of movement of money. However, if you are an apt individual and you're really motivated and, this isn't where you're going to stop, then run it the whole way, man. Go for it. I would say do the best you can with it and really take off on it. So, now you got taxes done. Now you've got a bookkeeper. Now you've got your cards, you got your truck, you got your invoices down, your customer management's on point. Now you're finally at the point where once you have that process streamlined, okay, then what happens is that you can start relaxing on the business aspect. You start pushing more on the marketing, more on the networking, focusing on your craft, as well as then you'll be able to actually have the room for growth, room to think about growth. So I hope this really helps you guys. I apologize for the interruption. But what I can say is that if you guys are going on your own, I mean, I recommend you do it. We are in the 1099 superior race right now. We are at the point where anyone can be their own boss. And as long as you have two brain cells to rub together and you can use some common sense, it's really not hard to get something going. The most important aspect, if you're looking to go on your own, the hardest thing is going to be getting your licensing down. Once you have your licensing down, then you're good to go. You get your licensing down, you get your business license through the county or the state, depending on how that's done. Uh, get your business name and then start getting established, getting your foot in the door. And depending on what kind of place you were at previously, well, what happens is that as technicians, you know, as mechanics, as guys who go out, we meet the customer, we shake the customer's hand, we take their money, we get seen constantly. And so what happens is that we start building rapport. And chances are what'll end up happening is that if you're a guy who was doing a great job, punctual, took care of your customers' needs, really looked out for them, then what'll end up happening is that chances are when you let them know that that you're going to go on your own, even though you may have an NDA with uh, your current company or the company that you're leaving to become independent, well, they're just that NDA only prevents you really from approaching that customer for the sale. If that customer decides that they are going to change who they have take care of their stuff and they decide to call you, that's a whole other story. I would take that as a compliment. What's really funny is that um, most NDAs, especially like California, right? And I laugh because I see people getting so nervous about NDAs and non disclosure agreements. And NDAs are non enforceable in the state of California. Okay. People throw them out, people get people to sign them all the time. But realistically, if you go to court, it's kind of a null issue, at least in California. I don't really know how it is across the country yet. I'll have to look into that. But if you have been thinking of going on your own and you're good at what you do, and you've been generating side work for yourself, you've been starting to build that backbone, okay? I would really consider taking the steps to going legal, because the one thing that's going to really bite you in the ass, okay, is if you're doing side work and you're unlicensed and you're not covered, you're not insured. Oh, and insurance. We'll talk about that here in a second. But if you're doing side work and you're uninsured and you don't have a license to fall back on, then what'll end up happening is that at some point a customer is going to get disgruntled. A customer is going to get disgruntled. You're going to do bad work potentially, or someone's going to fuck your work. And then what'll end up happening is that someone's going to come after you. Okay, someone's going to either try and take a lawsuit against you, tarnish your name, drag you through the dirt, sue you, whatever. Okay. And the last thing you want is to be involved in something like that. So, if you are doing side work, I get doing a little bit, guys. I'm not a fucking Nazi when it comes to that. What I'm saying is that you want to limit your exposure to the negative shit. And the way you do that is by being licensed and being insured. Now, part of being licensed and going on your own is that once you have your license, once you have your company set up and it's registered with the state, but before you go and do your first job, okay, you need to have business insurance, okay? And what you'll want to do is that you'll find an insurance broker, okay? And you'll talk to them. Hopefully, you'll find an insurance broker that specializes in construction related insurances. But what you want to do is get your broker, talk to them, let them know what you need. You need to meet the basics, which I believe is $3 million limit. It used to be a million, which was $1 million each occurrence, $1 million on the policy. Uh, Now I think it's 3 and 1, which is 1 million each occurrence, 3 million total coverage, and it's usually pretty cheap. You'll end up finding that for like 800 bucks, $1,000 a year. They really aren't that expensive. And if you're not doing a ton of work right now, you don't need super high coverage. So, and it'll cover things like theft, if your equipment gets stolen off the job, things like that. And that's why you want that, because chances are, if you're doing side work, you're going to be in shitty fucking areas, and your tools or your equipment, whatever you're installing, can be stolen. And so, having the insurance is a good backup, because they'll replace some of the tools and they'll replace the equipment. So, having insurance is a necessity. That is part of your legal protection. Okay. So, with that, I apologize for all the fucking interruptions. People just don't get it anymore. I tell them that I do this shit now, and I have all but 232 people subscribed, and some of them watch regularly, some don't. You know, I really wish y'all fuckers would talk. It's getting kind of boring just talking into a camera by myself. I'm trying to think of things to talk about, and you guys are giving me no ideas. So, with that, I'm signing off for the day. Happy HVACing, happy tradesmaning. Good luck, guys. Be safe out there. Don't kill yourself. Till the next time, I'm signing off. Blue Collar Tradesman.